They wanted to break her. They had the power, the money, and the whole town behind them. But what they didn't know is that Aaliyah wasn't just a cheerleader, she was a Marine's daughter. And she was building a case. Let me tell you about a girl named Aaliyah. If you drove through her town on a Friday night in Texas, you'd think you understood everything you needed to know about it. You'd see the stadium lights blazing like a second sun, hear the roar of 1,000 voices rising into the dark sky, smell the popcorn and hot dogs drifting through the autumn air. You'd see the packed bleachers, the marching band in their crisp uniforms, and the cheerleaders flipping and spinning with smiles that could light up the whole field. And you'd think, this is America. This is community. This is home. But if you stayed long enough, if you looked close enough, you'd see something else. You'd see how certain people moved through that crowd like royalty. How certain boys never had to wait in line, never heard the word no, never faced consequences. You'd see a kingdom built not on touchdowns and trophies, but on something darker, on silence, on fear, on the understanding that some people matter more than others. Aaliyah lived in that kingdom. And for a while, she thought she understood her place in it. She was a junior that year, 5'6", with her natural hair pulled back in a high ponytail that bounced when she moved, and a smile that came easy because she genuinely loved what she did. Cheering wasn't just yelling and pom-poms for Aaliyah, it was artistry, athleticism, teamwork. It was the feeling of nailing a basket toss, of moving in perfect sync with her squad, of being part of something bigger than herself. She had dreams, too. College dreams. Scholarship dreams. A future that stretched beyond the town limits, beyond Friday night games that would one day fade into somebody else's glory days. But first, she had to survive her junior year. It started small. So small that she almost missed it. It was a Tuesday after practice. The team was running through plays on the field while the cheerleaders worked on a new routine at the sidelines. Aaliyah was spotting for one of the younger girls, concentrating, when she felt it. A hard shove from behind that sent her stumbling forward, catching herself just before her knees hit the turf. She spun around. TJ Callahan stood there, football in hand, that easy smile on his face that made adults trust him and got him out of every tight spot he'd ever been in. He was the quarterback, the star, the boy whose name appeared in the local paper every single week with words like phenomenal and unstoppable attached to it. "My bad," he said, shrugging. "Didn't see you there." But his eyes said something different. His eyes were cold, calculating. And for just a second, one flicker of a moment, Aaliyah saw something that made her stomach tighten. Then he jogged away, and his teammates laughed, and Coach Morrison blew his whistle, and the world kept spinning like nothing had happened. Aaliyah touched her shoulder where he'd made contact. It would bruise. She knew it would bruise. "You okay?" her friend Maya asked, running over. "Yeah," Aaliyah said automatically. "Just an accident."
But was it?
She pushed the thought away. TJ Callahan was the golden boy. His uncle, Cal Callahan, basically ran the booster club, which meant he basically ran the entire athletic program. People like that didn't target people like her for no reason. It was an accident, she told herself. It had to be. Except the accidents kept happening. 2 days later, Brent Kowalski and Jace Turner, TJ's right and left hands, the offensive line that protected him on every play, cornered her outside the gym after practice. "Heard you've been talking," Brent said. He was massive, 6'3", and built like a truck. When he stepped closer, Aaliyah had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Talking about what? Her voice stayed steady, even though her heart was hammering. About TJ. About the team. Jace circled around behind her, blocking her exit. Spreading rumors. "I haven't said anything about anyone." This was true. She'd barely even told Maya about the shove, had played it off as nothing. "Keep it that way," Brent said quietly. Then he smiled, and it was worse than TJ's smile because there was nothing behind Brent's eyes at all. Just empty space where empathy should live. They walked away, and Aaliyah stood there in the hallway with her gym bag clutched to her chest, trying to understand what had just happened. She hadn't said anything. So, why were they warning her? The whispers started after that. Quiet at first. Just little comments in the hallway, sideways glances in class. Then louder. I heard she's jealous of the football team. She thinks she's better than everyone. Did you hear what she said about TJ? Aaliyah never said anything about TJ. But the rumors didn't care about truth. They cared about repetition, about volume, about how many times a lie could be told before it calcified into fact. Her friends started looking at her differently.
Some of them, anyway.
Maya stuck by her, but others pulled back, suddenly busy, suddenly distant. In a town where the football team was everything, you didn't want to be on the wrong side of them. Ms. Ramirez noticed. Ms. Ramirez taught AP English and ran the school newspaper, and she noticed things that other teachers missed. She noticed when Aaliyah stopped raising her hand in class. Noticed when her essays, usually sharp and insightful, started coming in just good enough to maintain her A. Noticed the way Aaliyah's shoulders curved inward now, like she was trying to make herself smaller. Stay after class a minute, Ms. Ramirez said one day, casual, like it was nothing. When the room cleared, she sat on the edge of her desk and looked at Aaliyah with eyes that held no judgment, only concern. You want to talk about it? Aaliyah's throat tightened. For a moment, she wanted to tell her everything. The shove, the cornering, the whispers. But what would Ms. Ramirez do? Go to the administration? The same administration that relied on Cal Callahan's Booster Club donations to keep the programs running? I'm fine, Aaliyah said. Ms. Ramirez studied her for a long moment. Then she wrote something on a post-it note and handed it over. My classroom. Lunch. Anytime you need it. Just in case, Ms. Ramirez said softly. You're not alone, Aaliyah. Remember that. Aaliyah folded the note and put it in her pocket. She didn't know yet how much she would need those words. The theft accusation came 3 weeks into what Aaliyah had started thinking of as the campaign. That's what it felt like, a coordinated campaign to push her out, to make her quit. Another, accidental, shove in the hallway. Her water bottle knocked over at practice. Her name left off the roster for the homecoming routine. Small things. Constant things. Things that made her feel crazy for caring about them. Then one Friday, before the biggest game of the season, someone broke into her gym locker. Aaliyah knew something was wrong the moment she saw the bent door. Her lock was still in place, but the metal was warped like someone had pried it open. Her stomach dropped. Inside, tucked beneath her gym shoes, was a wallet she'd never seen before. She picked it up with shaking hands, already knowing what was about to happen. There it is. A voice boomed from behind her. Coach Morrison strode down the row of lockers, TJ and his Uncle Cal flanking him like bodyguards. I told you we'd find it. This isn't mine. Aaliyah's voice came out strangled. That's Jamie's wallet, TJ said, pointing. She's been looking for it all week. How'd it get in your locker, Aaliyah? Coach Morrison's face was stone. Cal Callahan's mouth curved into something that almost resembled sympathy, but his eyes were satisfied, triumphant. I didn't. She looked from face to face, understanding crystallizing like ice in her veins. This was planted. Someone broke into my locker. That's a serious accusation, Cal said smoothly. Do you have any proof? Proof. She had bruises that had faded. She had witnesses to nothing. She had her word against theirs, and in this kingdom, her word was worth less than dirt. Other students were gathering now, phones out, recording. The humiliation was public, intentional, devastating. We're going to have to suspend you from the squad pending investigation, Coach Morrison said. Can't have a thief representing our school. The word thief echoed through the locker room, through the hallways, through her entire life. Aaliyah stood there, holding a wallet she'd never seen before, and felt something crack inside her chest. Not break. Crack. And through that crack, something cold and sharp slid in. Anger. She didn't cry until she got home. Her father, Darius, was in the kitchen when she walked in. He was on leave from his Marine unit, spending a rare 2 months at home, and he took one look at his daughter's face and knew. Tell me, he said simply.
So she did.
All of it. The shove, the threats, the whispers, the wallet. The way Coach Morrison had looked at her like she was garbage. The way Cal Callahan had smiled. When she finished, her father was quiet for a long time. He wasn't a man who rushed to judgment or exploded in anger. He was a Marine. He assessed, he strategized, he executed. "What do you want to do?" he finally asked. "I want them to pay," Aaliyah whispered. "I want everyone to know what they did." Darius nodded slowly. "Okay, then we're going to do this right. We're going to do this smart." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "You know what the biggest mistake people make in combat is?" Aaliyah shook her head. "They fight angry. They fight emotional. They make noise and they make mistakes." He tapped the table. "You want to win this? You fight cold. You document everything. You build a case so airtight that they can't lie their way out. You understand." Something shifted in Aaliyah's chest. The anger didn't disappear, it crystallized. It became something with edges, with purpose. "I understand." "Good." Her father pulled out a notebook.
"Now."
"We're going to make a plan. Every interaction from now on you document. Time, place, witnesses. You get evidence, audio, video, anything concrete. Ms. Ramirez sounds like an ally. You loop her in carefully. And you keep your head down. Let them think they've won." "Dad. I know, baby girl. I know you want to fight back right now. But the best fights, the ones that matter, those are won with patience." He reached across the table and took her hand. "You're not just a cheerleader anymore. You're an investigator."
"Can you do that?"
Aaliyah thought about TJ's cold smile, about Brent's empty eyes, about standing in that locker room while they destroyed her reputation. "Yes," she said. "I can do that." The next day, Aaliyah walked into an electronics store 3 towns over where no one knew her. She bought a small digital recorder that could clip to her bag, a pen camera that actually worked, a composition notebook with numbered pages. The clerk, an older woman with kind eyes, rang up her purchase and then paused. "School project?" she asked. Aaliyah met her gaze steadily. "Something like that." The woman looked at her for a long moment, and something passed between them, a recognition and understanding. "Good luck, honey," she said quietly. Aaliyah walked out of that store with her bag of evidence-gathering tools, and she felt different. Lighter, somehow, despite the weight of what was coming. They thought they'd broken her. Thought they'd scared her into silence. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that Aaliyah wasn't just fighting for her spot on the squad anymore. She was fighting for every girl who'd been pushed out, every student who'd been silenced, every person who'd ever been told their truth didn't matter. And she was going to win. She just had to be patient. She just had to be smart. She just had to let them think they'd already won. Patience, Aaliyah learned, was its own kind of warfare. Every morning, she woke up and put on her armor, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, a posture that suggested defeat, a quietness that made people think she'd been broken. She walked through the hallways of her school like a ghost, and that's exactly what she wanted them to see. But underneath, she was a soldier on a mission. The recorder clipped to her backpack ran constantly. The pen camera sat in her shirt pocket, innocent and unnoticed. And the composition notebook that lived in her locker, each page carefully dated, each incident meticulously documented. October 12th, 3:47 p.m. Brent shoulder-checked me outside the cafeteria. Hard enough to make me drop my books. Said, "Watch where you're going," loud enough for others to hear. Made it look like my fault. Witness, Maya Rodriguez, Marcus Chin. October 15th, 2:20 p.m. Found my cheer uniform shredded in my gym locker. Lock still intact. Someone has a master key. Took photos. Reported to Coach Morrison. He said I probably did it myself for attention. Recording, 4 minutes, 32 seconds. October 18th, 7:35 p.m. TJ posted on social media about snakes in the grass and people who don't belong. 3 teammates commented with snake emojis within minutes. Screenshot saved. It went on.
And on. And on.
The boys grew bolder because they thought she was beaten. TJ would bump into her in the hallway and whisper things, "You should just quit," or "Nobody wants you here," quiet enough that only she could hear. Jay started a rumor that she'd tried to seduce him and got mad when he rejected her. Brent made sure she was excluded from every team event, every social gathering.
And Aaliyah?
She documented it all. But God, it was lonely. There were nights she sat in her room with her evidence spread out around her, recordings, photos, notes, and wondered if it was worth it. Wondered if maybe it would be easier to just leave, to transfer schools, to let them win. Maya stayed by her side, but even Maya couldn't be there all the time. Even Maya got tired of being associated with the girl everyone whispered about. I don't know how much more of this I can take, Aaliyah admitted one night to her father. They were sitting at the kitchen table, reviewing her latest documentation. Darius looked up from the notebook, his expression serious. You know what separates the soldiers who make it through boot camp from the ones who ring the bell? He asked. Aaliyah shook her head. It's not strength. It's not even courage. It's the ability to see past the immediate pain to the purpose behind it. He tapped her notebook. This hurts now. It's supposed to hurt, they're trying to break you. But every day you endure, every piece of evidence you collect, you're building something they can't tear down. A foundation of truth. What if it's not enough? Her voice cracked. Then we make it enough. He reached across and squeezed her hand. You're not alone in this, baby girl. You've never been alone. Ms. Ramirez became her lifeline. They started meeting during lunch in the empty English classroom. At first, Aaliyah just needed a safe space, somewhere she could eat without being stared at, somewhere she could breathe without feeling like walls were closing in. But then Ms. Ramirez started asking questions. How are they getting away with this? She wondered one day, reviewing Aaliyah's notes. It's so blatant. Why isn't the administration stepping in? Because of Cal Callahan, Aaliyah said. TJ's uncle. He's on the school board. He runs the booster club. He's the one who funds everything: new uniforms, equipment, facility upgrades. The school needs him. Ms. Ramirez went very still. The booster club. Something in her tone made Aaliyah look up. What? I sit on the budget committee, Ms. Ramirez said slowly. We review department funding, including athletics. And some of the numbers. She trailed off, her eyes distant. Some of the numbers haven't added up. Donations that come in but never seem to make it to the programs they're designated for. Aaliyah's heart started beating faster. Are you saying? I'm saying maybe TJ and his friends aren't the only problem. Ms. Ramirez pulled out her laptop. Give me a few days. I need to look into something. 3 days later, Ms. Ramirez had a paper trail. Booster club donations that were supposed to go to the band program but mysteriously got reallocated. Equipment purchases that happened on paper but never materialized. Personal expenses, dinners, travel, even a truck, charged to the athletic fund. Cal Callahan had been treating the booster club like his personal bank account for years. This is it, Aaliyah breathed, staring at the spreadsheets. This is how we get him. This is how we get all of them, Ms. Ramirez corrected. But we need to be smart about who we take this to. If we go to Principal Hayes, he'll bury it. He's too close to Cal. We need to go higher. The district superintendent? Dr. Patricia Williams. She's new, only been in the position 6 months. And from what I've heard, she doesn't have any loyalty to the old guard. Ms. Ramirez looked at Aaliyah seriously. But if we do this, if we really do this, there's no going back. They'll come after us hard. After you especially. Are you ready for that? Aaliyah thought about the past 6 weeks. The bruises, the whispers, the isolation. The feeling of being erased from her own life. I've been ready, she said. But the boys weren't done with her yet. It was late October, when they made their biggest move. The team was having a fundraiser dinner, a fancy event where boosters and community members paid ridiculous amounts of money to eat mediocre food and hear Coach Morrison talk about championship dreams. Aaliyah wasn't invited, obviously. But Ms. Ramirez was as a representative of the faculty. And Ms. Ramirez's purse, expensive, a gift from her late mother, went missing during the event. They found it the next day. In Aaliyah's locker. This is getting ridiculous, Principal Hayes said wearily when Aaliyah was called to his office. Ms. Ramirez was there too, along with Coach Morrison and, of course, Cal Callahan. I didn't take it, Aaliyah said. Her recorder was running. Her pen camera was recording. She was so tired of saying these words. Someone planted it, just like they planted the wallet before. Your locker was locked, Principal Hayes pointed out. Someone has a master key. I've told you this before. Cal Callahan sighed, and it was a performance worthy of an Oscar. Aaliyah, sweetheart, this victim mentality isn't healthy. First you accused my nephew and his teammates of bullying you, accusations we found no evidence for. Then you claim someone planted evidence. Now this. Don't you think it's time to take some responsibility? Every word was designed to make her seem crazy, dramatic, attention-seeking. And she could see Principal Hayes wavering, could see him wanting to believe the easier story, that this was just a troubled girl causing problems. But then Ms. Ramirez spoke up. Actually, I'd like to request we review the security footage. Everyone turned to look at her. Security footage? Hayes blinked. From the hallway outside the locker room. And from the event last night. Ms. Ramirez's voice was calm, professional. Before we make any accusations, shouldn't we look at all available evidence? Cal's expression flickered, just for a second, but Aaliyah saw it.
Worry.
Maybe even fear. I'm sure that won't be necessary, he started. I think it's an excellent idea, Aaliyah interrupted. She looked directly at Principal Hayes. Let's watch the footage. All of it. Let's see who's been accessing my locker. Let's see what really happened at that dinner. There was a long, tense silence. Fine, Hayes finally said. We'll review it. But Aaliyah, you're suspended from all activities until this is resolved. Another suspension. Another punishment for being the victim. But as Aaliyah walked out of that office, she caught Ms. Ramirez's eye. And Ms. Ramirez gave her the smallest nod. They had them. That night, Aaliyah sat with her father and Ms. Ramirez in their living room, and they made a plan. The security footage showed everything. Jace using a master key to open Aaliyah's locker, planting the purse. Brent doing the same thing weeks earlier with the wallet. The footage also showed the boys discussing it beforehand, standing just under a camera they didn't know was there. But even with video evidence, they knew what would happen if they went through normal channels. Principal Hayes would find a way to explain it away. Cal would use his influence to suppress it. The boys would get a slap on the wrist at most.
No.
They needed to go bigger. The homecoming game, Aaliyah said suddenly. It's in 2 weeks. Biggest game of the season. The bleachers will be packed, not just with students and parents, but with local media, district officials, everyone. You want to expose them publicly? Her father raised an eyebrow. I want everyone to see. All at once. No chance for spin. No chance for cover-up. Aaliyah pulled out her composition notebook. I have 6 weeks of documented harassment. We have security footage. We have Ms. Ramirez's financial records showing Cal's embezzlement. We package it all together, and we present it when no one can ignore it. The district superintendent will be there, Ms. Ramirez said thoughtfully. Dr. Williams always attends homecoming games. Then we make sure she sees everything. Aaliyah looked between them. Can we do this? Her father smiled, that rare, fierce smile that he usually saved for talking about successful missions. Baby girl, he said, we're going to win this war. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of Aaliyah's life. She was suspended, cut off from her squad, isolated from her school community. The rumors reached a fever pitch. Online harassment intensified, anonymous accounts posting about her, photoshopped images, threats. There were moments she wanted to give up. Moments she sat in her room and cried and wondered if revenge was really worth this much pain. But every time she faltered, she thought about the other girls. The ones before her who'd been pushed out and stayed silent. The ones who'd come after if nothing changed. And she kept going. Her father helped her organize her evidence into a clear, chronological presentation. Ms. Ramirez contacted Dr. Williams's office, requesting a meeting to discuss concerns about athletic program funding. They prepared binders, 3 of them, identical, containing everything. And Aaliyah practiced her speech. The words she would say when the moment came. Keep it factual, her father coached. Let the evidence speak for itself. Don't get emotional. Don't attack. Just present the truth. The truth is enough, Ms. Ramirez agreed. Aaliyah hoped they were right. Homecoming night arrived with perfect weather. Cool but not cold, clear sky, a hint of autumn in the air. The stadium was packed. Standing room only. The home team bleachers were a sea of school colors, and the visiting side was nearly as full. Local news crews had cameras set up. The marching band was playing. Cheerleaders, Aaliyah's squad, without her, were running through their routines. Aaliyah sat in the stands with her father on one side and Ms. Ramirez on the other. She wore her school colors even though she wasn't in uniform. The binders sat in a bag at her feet. Dr. Williams was in the VIP section with the school board members, including Cal Callahan, who looked pleased with himself. Why wouldn't he be? His nephew was about to lead the team to another victory, his reputation was intact, and the girl who'd tried to cause problems had been neutralized. TJ ran onto the field to thunderous applause. Brent and Jace flanked him, invincible and untouchable. Aaliyah's hands shook. "You've got this," her father murmured. The first half played out like every other game. Touchdowns, cheers, the band blaring. Cal Callahan stood and waved to the crowd like a politician. Principal Hayes made announcements about upcoming events. And then, halftime. The teams retreated to their locker rooms. The band took the field for their performance. And Ms. Ramirez stood up. "Stay here," she told Aaliyah. "I'll signal when it's time." Aaliyah watched her teacher walk down the bleachers, across the track, and directly to where Dr. Williams sat. Watched them talk. Watched Dr. Williams's expression change from polite interest to sharp attention. Watched Ms. Ramirez hand over one of the binders. 5 minutes later, Ms. Ramirez waved. Aaliyah stood. Her father stood with her. Together, they made their way down to the field. The band was finishing their performance. Dr. Williams was on her phone, gesturing sharply. Principal Hayes looked confused. Cal Callahan looked angry. And then Dr. Williams took the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please." Her voice cut through the noise, amplified across the entire stadium. "There's been a development that requires immediate address." The crowd quieted, curious. Dr. Williams looked directly at Aaliyah. "Would Aaliyah Johnson please come forward?" The walk across that field was the longest of Aaliyah's life. She could feel thousands of eyes on her. Could hear the whispers starting. Could see TJ and his teammates emerging from the locker room, confused. But she kept walking. Her father kept pace with her, solid and steady. When she reached the center of the field, Dr. Williams handed her the microphone. "Tell them," she said quietly. Aaliyah looked out at the crowd. At her classmates. At her teachers. At TJ, Brent, and Jace, who were starting to look worried. At Coach Morrison and Cal Callahan, who looked furious. And she began. "My name is Aaliyah Johnson, and for the past 6 weeks, I've been systematically harassed, intimidated, and framed by members of our football team and their supporters." She told them everything. Not with anger. Not with tears. Just with facts. She described the first shove, the threats, the planted evidence. She described being cornered, being whispered about, being slowly erased from her own life. And as she spoke, her father set up a laptop and projector, equipment Ms. Ramirez had arranged in advance. The security footage played on the stadium's big screen. There was Jace, clear as day, breaking into her locker. There was Brent, planting the wallet. There were all 3 boys, standing beneath a camera they didn't know existed, laughing about it. "That bitch is done." TJ's voice carried across the stadium, caught on the security audio. "She'll quit by Monday." The crowd's murmur turned into a roar. But Aaliyah wasn't finished. "This wasn't just about me," she continued. "This was about protecting a system. A system where certain people are untouchable because of who they are, who their families are, how much money they bring in." Ms. Ramirez stepped forward with another binder. "The financial records. Booster Club President Cal Callahan has embezzled over $80,000 from athletic program funds over the past 3 years, Aaliyah said, and now her voice was stronger, clearer. Money meant for band instruments went to his personal expenses. Donations meant for academic programs were diverted. And when I became a threat to the system, I had to be silenced." Cal Callahan was on his feet, red-faced, shouting. But his voice was lost in the chaos. Security was already moving toward him. Dr. Williams took back the microphone. Effective immediately, she announced, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Coach Morrison is suspended pending investigation. TJ Callahan, Brent Kowalski, and Jace Turner are suspended from all athletic activities and will face disciplinary hearings. Cal Callahan, you are removed from all school-related positions, and I will be referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal investigation. She turned to Aaliyah. Miss Johnson, you have shown extraordinary courage and integrity. Your suspension is lifted, and you are hereby reinstated as cheer captain. Furthermore, the district will be establishing a new scholarship in your name for students who demonstrate moral courage in the face of adversity. The crowd erupted. Some were cheering. Some were booing. Some were just stunned, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. But Aaliyah didn't hear any of it. She stood in the center of that field, under those Friday night lights, and she felt something break open in her chest. Not crack this time, bloom. Like a flower that had been growing in darkness, finally reaching sunlight. Her father wrapped her in a hug. Ms. Ramirez was crying. Even Maya had pushed through the crowd to get to her. And across the field, TJ Callahan stood with his helmet in his hands, his kingdom crumbling around him, finally understanding what it felt like to be powerless. The aftermath happened quickly. Coach Morrison was fired within the week. Criminal charges were filed against Cal Callahan, not just embezzlement but also conspiracy to harass a minor and misuse of his school board position. The investigation uncovered even more corruption, and 3 other Booster Club members were implicated. TJ, Brent, and Jace were expelled. They tried to fight it, hired lawyers, had their parents scream about ruined futures and college scholarships. But the evidence was ironclad. The video didn't lie. The financial records didn't lie. The truth didn't lie. A new coach was hired, Coach Sarah Martinez, who'd been an assistant at a Dallas school. She came in with new expectations, new standards, and zero tolerance for the culture that had festered under Morrison's watch. The cheer squad welcomed Aaliyah back with an elaborate routine at the next game, and this time when she stood on that field, she was surrounded by teammates who saw her, who valued her, who understood what she'd sacrificed. The scholarship fund was established. Aaliyah would be its first recipient, a full ride to any state university she chose. But more than that, more than the vindication, more than the scholarship, more than watching the toxic system get dismantled, was the change she could see in her school. Other students started speaking up. About unfair treatment, about harassment they'd endured in silence, about the things they'd witnessed but been too scared to report. The culture shift was slow, but it was real. And one day, a freshman girl approached Aaliyah in the hallway. "I just wanted to say thank you," the girl said quietly. "Last year, I almost quit soccer because some guys were making it impossible. But I saw what you did, and I
documented it.
I reported it. And they got benched. So thank you for showing me I didn't have to just take it." Aaliyah's eyes burned. "You did that yourself," she said. "You were already brave. You just needed to see that it was possible to win." On a cool November evening, Aaliyah sat on her front porch with her father. He was deploying again in 2 weeks, heading back to his unit. But for now, they had this quiet time, the kind of peaceful moment that felt earned rather than given. "I'm proud of you, baby girl," Darius said. "Not just for what you did, but for how you did it. You kept your head. You fought smart. You became a warrior." Aaliyah leaned against his shoulder. "I learned from the best." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over their small Texas town. "Do you think things will really change?" Aaliyah asked. "Or will it just go back to how it was?" "That depends on people like you," her father said. "Change doesn't come from one brave act. It comes from sustained courage. From people willing to stand up again and again, even when it's hard, even when it's scary." "Well," Aaliyah said, smiling, "then I guess I'd better stick around." 6 months later, Aaliyah led her squad to a state championship. She stood at the center of that competition floor, surrounded by her teammates, a team rebuilt on respect, on genuine support, on the understanding that excellence didn't require cruelty. When they nailed their final stunt, When the crowd roared and the judges awarded them first place, Aaliyah felt joy so pure it almost hurt. Not because of the trophy, not because of the recognition, but because she'd fought for the right to be here. Because she'd refused to let them erase her. Because she'd turned her pain into purpose and her anger into action. And because somewhere in that crowd, there might be another girl who was facing her own TJ Callahan, her own Coach Morrison, her own corrupt system. And that girl would see Aaliyah standing here, victorious and whole, and she'd know. They wanted to break her. They had the power, the money, and the whole town behind them. But what they didn't know was that Aaliyah wasn't just a cheerleader, she was a Marine's daughter. And she was building a case. They thought they were playing a game they couldn't lose. But Aaliyah? She changed the rules. And she won. It's possible to fight back. It's possible to win. It's possible to roar.